CONEHEADS is a 1993 science fiction comedy directed by Steve Barron and starring Dan Aykroyd and Jan Curtin, as cone-headed extraterrestrials find themselves in New Jersey after a recon mission for their home planet of Remulac goes awry. Paramount presents this film on Blu-ray with a 2K scan. What is up, everybody, and welcome back to the Mid-Level Media channel, your hub for everything physical media and entertainment. Before we get into talking about CONEHEADS, I'm going to be talking about this movie and the Blu-ray and all that stuff and why you need to buy this right now. We'll be leaving the link down below for purchase if you do want to get this. You know, subscribe to the channel. If you haven't yet subscribed to the channel, we cover Blu-rays and 4Ks and physical media, owning the movies that you love, you like that kind of stuff. Hit the subscribe button. Also, be sure to like this video, guys, and then comment down below. I want to know what's your thoughts on CONEHEADS? Did you grow up with this one like I did? Or is this your first time hearing about this movie? Or are you like, Ken, what do you keep talking about CONEHEADS for? What is CONEHEADS and why is it so great? Well, I'm here to tell you why you should buy this, why this movie is so great here today. I'm here to sell you on CONEHEADS. So anyway, yeah, comment down below. We'll be leaving the link for purchase in the description, like I just said, and then turn on the bell notifications for all future videos. Yeah. 1993 is this one when this movie came out, and this is based off of a Saturday Night Live skit. So in the 90s, you know, they had Wayne's World, they had CONEHEADS, they had a number of SNL inspired movies. They did that through the 90s, the 2000s. You got Superstar with Molly Shannon, Night at the Roxbury, of course, but they did a lot of them in the 90s, and this was one of them. So this one, what was interesting about this is I looked it up. The first CONEHEADS SNL skit was on season 2 of Saturday Night Live in 1977. So this was 16 years before they actually made a movie of that skit. So I went back and watched a couple of them. I've seen them before, but it's been years. Super funny sketches, by the way. But the makeup for the CONEHEADS, I just wasn't there. It looked like they had like, I don't know what you call it, paper mache or something on their heads instead of like the, it definitely looks much better, much more realistic as far as what an actual conehead would look like in the movie. But yeah, the actual skits were hilarious. You got John Belushi in it, you got Gilda Radner, they're like a couple and they invite the CONEHEADS over. It's just the comedy is there, it's all there. And then there was one with Bill Murray and it was a Family Feud episode, and that one was super funny as well. So I just went back and kind of reminisced on the actual skits and seeing how they kind of you know, led into this movie. So I thought it was interesting that it was a 16-year gap between the original CONEHEADS skit and the actual film itself. But it's just, you know, it's very close to my childhood, this movie, and it's one of those movies that, of course, I've always loved it, but I hadn't seen this movie in probably 15 to 20 years. And maybe the last time I watched it was on TV or something. I don't think I ever owned this movie on DVD. I might have owned it on VHS or at least had like a recorded copy of it. But I remember watching this movie like crazy when I was a kid. It was one of my favorites. Like I said numerous times on this channel, comedy was just one of my favorite genres when I was a kid, comedy and horror. And I watch this movie all the time. But it's one of those movies that as years went on, I just kind of forgot about it. And then when this Blu-ray was announced, I just was like, I was so excited because I was like, oh, CONEHEADS, I cannot wait to get that and rewatch it. And yes, I wish, you know, it would have got like a premiere Shout Factor release with tons of new special features with Dan Aykroyd interviews and Jane Curtin interviews and just everybody reminiscing on the film. That would have been great. Hopefully we can still get something like that. I don't know, but it would have been fantastic. I think this movie deserves so much more than just a bare bones Blu-ray release. But that's what we got, so that's what I'm gonna take. But yeah, this movie, let me just express my love for CONEHEADS. I'm gonna try to sell you all on this movie, but it's a super hilarious movie. It's a fish out of water scenario. You have Beldar and his wife, Primates. And I'm sure I'm pronouncing that name wrong. I cannot remember them actually saying it in the movie, but you have Beldar and his wife and they crash land on Earth. It's a recon mission gone horribly wrong, and they need to be rescued by the people on their planet. And when they contact them, the planet says, hey, we can come get you, but it's going to be about 20 years. So they have to spend 20 years on Earth basically like blending in and trying to adapt to the culture and the environment on Earth. But just the way that Dan Aykroyd and Jane Curtin play it, it's just so incredibly hilarious. Like, it's just so super serious the way that they act. I just love their performances in this movie. So yeah, it leads to some great comedy, but it's different because, you know, in most like fish out of water stories, you know, it's just like a singular time period. But what makes this one different is you get the fish out of water stuff in the beginning, but then you get the time jump, which is about 16 years, and they have a kid, and their daughter is growing up on Earth, so she's pretty much an Earthling. She's a regular human, but she has a cone head. And then Beldar and his wife are still trying to adapt to the Earth culture and the climate, but they're pretty well adjusted and adapt when they do that time jump. They're fitting in, they're in suburban life, they're playing golf, or Beldar's playing golf. He's got his neighbor, Jason Alexander, that he's having talks with, barbecues and cookouts and all that stuff. So they're pretty well adjusted and adapted, but there's still something a little off about them. Everybody can kind of tell, and they just excuse it by saying we're from France, which is a hilarious bit that they had in the original skit as well. So it is really unique in that aspect that you get them when they first get there, and then you get that time jump, so you get to see them more well adjusted and getting used to the domestic lifestyle of Earth. So it is interesting in that respect, and it's different. The story itself is just really interesting. The fact that they crash landed on Earth and they have to, kind of get used to and adjust to Earth life before they're being rescued, and then they get rescued, and then you get this awesome, like, epic conclusion that I always loved when I was a kid, though. Dan Aykroyd having to battle that monster. I remember when I watched it as a kid, I was always scared of that monster a little bit because it is kind of creepy. He like rips, tears people apart and throws their bones off and stuff. It's goofy now when you watch it. When I was a kid, I was like, oh damn, like that monster's dangerous. And then, Beldar has to go head to head with him. So I'm kind of worried about him. But I just love how nobody in the whole movie really questions why they have coneheads, except for one person. I think he questions Beldar, said something, references it on the golf course, but nobody throughout the whole movie questions why they have the coneheads. I guess they just assume it's some kind of genetic, disfigurement or something like that. So they just, they're not going to ask. Again, they just excuse everything by saying that they're from France or they're from out of country. But it's really, I like that. I like that they don't play into it. And like I said, Aykroyd and Curtin, they're just so funny together as this family unit, as husband and wife. And they also have some like real emotional resonance to them in their relationship. Like you care about them as a couple and you get the feeling that they both care about each other. And I like that. I like how this like stupid, silly comedy, you can still have some of those more like sweet emotional moments between a husband and a wife, and it works because you care about these characters. That's the difference between like comedies that come out now and comedies that came out in the 80s and 90s. They were super funny and they were super stupid, and very goofy, but you still cared about the characters because they were well written and they were very well portrayed by the actors. And the comedy's goofy, but you still care about them. So I think that they just played it perfectly. Curtin really needs more credit for this role. I think she's very underrated. Everybody knows Dan Aykroyd as Beldar, but Jan Curtin as Primate is just as good as Dan Aykroyd in this, and they're just so fantastic together. The makeup effects are fantastic, I think, in this, because like I said, when you go back and watch those old skits, like you can clearly see that they just kind of molded something and slapped it on their head. And in this, it's so like, you can see it go. But I will say one thing, with the Blu-ray transfer, you can kind of see the line between the actual like sculpting of the conehead and the person's actual head. I kind of noticed it a couple of times. It's not noticeable in every scene, but there were a couple scenes where I kind of noticed it. So that's something that I think the Blu-ray, kind of takes away from the actual experience, because it's such a good 2K transfer, and we're going to talk about that here in a second, that you can notice those lines between the actual cone head and the actual head itself. So, but anyway, that doesn't, it's fake anyway, so it doesn't really, take away too much, but really great special effects work anyway. I think it does look really good on all of them. And yeah, the cameos, the cast and the cameos in this movie. Let's talk about that. You got, let me run down this list of people. I'm not going to tell you who they are or how they fit into the story, but you have, all the SNL alum. You have Seinfeld cast in this movie. Just random people that became super famous down the line. But you have David Spade, Adam Sandler, Chris Farley, Joey Lauren Adams, and Parker Posey. Ellen DeGeneres is in this movie. Michael McKean, Phil Hartman, Jason Alexander, Jan Hooks, who I always loved on Saturday Night Live. She was super underrated comic as well. Michael Richard, Sinbad is in this film. Drew Carey, Kevin Nealon, who I love as well, and Tim Meadows, who I think is one of the most underrated comics of all time. Tim Meadows is fantastic, but he's in this movie for a very, very brief moment, but I did notice him in the movie. So it's just, the cast is insane. They pulled out all the stops, brought all these people in here. Most of them will become super famous later on down the line, but it's really cool to see them in this movie. So that makes this movie, that just ups the funness factor to the film itself. So look, I'm done talking about, I hope I sold you on this movie. It's a really fun movie. It's just a fun movie. It's a fun adventure film. It's a family film. There's not a lot of, you know, dirty jokes or anything like that in here. I'm pretty sure, yeah, it's rated PG. It's a funny movie, but it's a family comedy. Like, you can watch this movie with your kids, you know, and not have to worry about covering their eyes or covering their ears or anything like that. You know, there's very little cursing, and there's just not a lot of like inappropriate humor. It's just really that classic like comedy that's lighthearted and family friendly. So I would recommend this to anybody. Buy it, watch it with your kids. It's a fun movie. It's one of my favorite comedies from my childhood. I'm gonna give this movie a 4 out of 5. I love this film. So let's get into the actual, you know, Blu-ray transfer by Paramount. So this is not the first time that this has been put out on Blu-ray. I know Umbrella did a release overseas, but this is the first time a Blu-ray has been released domestically by Paramount. So this has had a Blu-ray before. I do want to point that out, by Umbrella, but this is the first time that it's been released domestically. So this is a very nice, you know, and I don't know if the transfer on this was the same one that Umbrella used, but this is a very nice, very sharp, clean 2K Blu-ray transfer. This is probably one of the better Blu-ray releases that I've seen of the year, as far as just like standard studio releases. Like Orange County, it looked okay, but it did not look as good as this one. And I didn't actually get a chance to watch Top Secret yet, but yeah, Coneheads on Blu-ray looks fantastic. I thought it looked excellent. Like I said, it takes away a little bit like the makeup. Like, you can kind of see the line between the actual, like, you know, cone sculpture and the head itself. But I thought it was really clean. And the one scene I was worried about was the end with the monster, because the effects work aren't the best. But I think for the time, I actually feel like that monster holds up a little bit. I think they kind of incorporated some stop motion into it as well. It doesn't look the best, but I don't think it looks the worst either. I think it looks pretty solid for the time period that it was made. And you have to think that also, this movie came out the same year as Jurassic Park. So I'm sure this movie had nowhere near the budget as Jurassic Park, so they could not make it look as good as that. But I think it's pretty solid, and I was worried that the Blu-ray would make it look a lot worse, and it really didn't. If anything, it enhanced the visual of the monster, I feel like. So I really like this Blu-ray transfer. I think it's a solid one. Like I said, I would love for this movie to come out in 4K. I absolutely love it. But I think Blu-ray is just fine. I think it's just fine. I'm just glad that it finally got that, you know, premiere Blu-ray release by the studio. Would I love Shout Factory to get a hold of it and do some special features? Absolutely. I would love a 4K. I would love all that stuff. But Blu-ray is good. Blu-ray is good for Coneheads, I think. Getting into the special features, again, no special features. I wish they would. I don't know, did they not do any special features on the DVD? I guess not, but there's no audio commentaries or anything. It's just the trailer. That's all you get with this one. So again, I would love somebody to do some audio commentaries to Conehead. I think it deserves it. But no special features for this. It's just the trailer. Getting into the audio, it's English DTS HD Master Audio 5.1. So everything sounded good to me. But again, I'm just listening to it on a soundbar. Now, getting into the packaging, again, it's the classic, you know, Coneheads poster and artwork right there. And I'll show you all the back on this release. I don't remember if this had any disc art. No, just the plain Blu-ray disc in there. But what I will say is this is one of those, like, I don't know if you guys noticed this kind of stuff, but this is one of these like really you know, sturdy Blu-ray cases, thick, sturdy Blu-ray cases that they put in this one. And I love it when they do that because it just feels more sturdy. Unlike the Top Secret one, I think Orange County, it's a little bit thinner. So I did want to compare them a little bit right here. And you can kind of see the difference. Like, it's a little bit darker shade of blue on the Coneheads one, and it's a little bit taller. It's a little bit taller, has a little bit more depth to it, but I like it when they use the sturdy cases. I've gotten a few Blu-rays from Paramount, and it comes in, the case is all, you know, smashed up and stuff, and it's broken. And these cases right here are not breaking unless you like take a hammer to it or something. So I appreciated the sturdy packaging. But yeah, Coneheads on Blu-ray. I love this movie. I absolutely recommend it. Again, I'm going to leave the link down below. I could not go. This is the release of the month for me. I was excited for Heat on 4K. I was excited for the Chucky 4Ks. But Coneheads was my most anticipated for the entire month, or at least, you know, one of them. So I had to talk about Coneheads. So I appreciate you guys checking out this review. I'm sure that not a lot of people are going to watch this. So those that did, I appreciate you. I see you out there. You checked out my Coneheads review, and I appreciate it. So like, comment, subscribe to the channel for more great content. Turn on the bell notifications. Follow me on all my social media accounts. Those links are down below in the description. And we'll see you next time.